We're talking about wind gusts that easily will push over 50 miles per hour across the impact area here, which is in coastal Broward County right now. So again, these very intense rain bands extend just offshore, and again, these are just going to keep coming over the course of the next hour or so. We'll break in the action a little bit closer to the radar site here at the NBC6 studios in Miramar. Pembroke Pines, again, we're not saying we're drying out. We're saying the rain not as heavy. The heaviest of the rain just offshore from Davie Beach, heading up to Fort Lauderdale and Fort Lauderdale Beach. And so that's really where we will hold the emphasis over the next 30 to 45 minutes. A moderate band still lifting back up out of Homestead. Remember, as we head off to the south and to the southwest, the gradient is increasing here, or decreasing, if you will, as the pressures drop heading down towards Irma. So the winds are getting stronger. The winds are much stronger in Homestead and Florida City than they are in North Miami Beach versus what they are in Coconut Creek. Again, the winds will continue to increase, but if we extend this band that's popping up around Coconut Grove and bending back into downtown and out to Miami Beach, again, it just takes a moderate rain to bring down those stronger winds that are just above the surface. Again, Miami-Dade County, as we wrap this up, right now, no tornado warnings in effect, but we continue with our hurricane warning, our storm surge warning, of course, and the tornado watch, which will extend until noon. We'll get later into the day our sustained winds that could push up between 60 and 70 miles per hour with our peak gusts at 75 to 80 miles per hour. And again, starting to see some of these rains come in. And a quick check into Broward County. Again, your storm surge warning was canceled earlier in the night, but the hurricane warning continues. We are not expecting sustained hurricane force winds, but we'll certainly see sustained tropical storm force winds with some peak gusts into hurricane intensity there between 70 and 80 miles per hour. Rain still a problem. Again, storm surge below the threshold of what we would issue a warning for, but in some of those problem areas, anywhere from Pompano and Deerfield all the way down to Harbor Beach, and as you move inside and towards Rio Vista, you know, the problem areas will still see some water problems. Storm surge warning was canceled. So guys, the radar is active. We'll check back in just a little bit. And Irma, as you'll see as we go back behind, getting closer and closer to the lower Keys. We're talking hours now, and it's time for folks to start hunkering down. We're going to get into that message here real soon.
All right, Ryan, thank you. And just to reiterate what Ryan was talking about very, very quickly here, our entire viewing area under a tornado watch until 12 p.m. today, but that particular tornado warning that we have been following for the last 20 minutes or so in Broward County, more specifically the areas of Coral Springs, Davie, Sunrise, those areas there, that tornado warning ended just about 3 minutes ago. Yeah. So that's a good thing. But remember, that tornado watch for our entire viewing area, that will continue throughout the course of the morning. It doesn't end until noon, with the possibility of it extending farther past that time.
Right now it's 4:22 in the morning, and on your screen you see a look of Hollywood Beach, and you see I-95 just to the side of us here. And we have John Caddis-Klimack. He is actually live in Hollywood Beach, so I want to get over to him. Hey, John.
Hey, good morning, you guys. We are noticing the wind. It's been a little bit more sustained than the gusts that we've been having throughout the early morning hours. So we're feeling that part of it. As of now, the rain itself, you kind of see a little bit, but it's more of a sprinkle just with all that wind. Over here, I wanted to point out, we showed this to you a little earlier. It looks like some of the shutters have been coming off of this because the wind gusts have been so strong through here, making a lot of noise over here too. We keep wondering at first what that noise was, then we realize it's the shutters that have come off of this apartment complex, it looks like, because of how strong the winds have been. And I tell you what, I come from Los Angeles, and we don't have this. We have what's called Santa Ana winds. They come in October, November. It's a warm wind, wreaks havoc when we have wildfires. But this, my goodness, is something I've never experienced before. I know earlier this morning we were in Key Largo. You remember us doing a live report from Key Largo? We had some wind gusts down there. That was considered tropical storm force winds. We are definitely feeling something much stronger than that here. You guys were talking about the tornado warnings up north, a little bit north of us in Fort Lauderdale. I've got a friend that actually lives here in Hollywood Beach, a producer at Telemundo, who said that earlier today they had the tornado warnings here as well, and she actually posted a video clip. Her and her husband moved into their bathroom, into that interior room to protect themselves during that time. Scary times, but right now, if anybody is awake in this area in Hollywood Beach, they're hearing the noises coming from the wind. They're probably hearing the raindrops smashing against their windows as well. It is getting stronger and stronger by the minute, but I tell you what, it is a feeling that I have not felt before, and it's a little surreal to be here, because we've watched this from across the country, as you guys report so often on storms like these, and then to actually be here and experience it as well is very different, guys.
Welcome to South Florida, John. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I said this a few minutes ago, John. I think what you just mentioned, I don't know if you realize this or not, but South Florida is a very transient community, and we have a lot of people that aren't originally from here. So just like you, I think that there are tens of thousands of people where this is their first hurricane and they're experiencing this for the first time, and how these conditions can change so quickly, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is exactly what you have seen in the last couple of hours.
And it's exactly what is happening right now as we're speaking. The rain wasn't coming down like this when we first started this report. It changes constantly, it seems like. And what has surprised me, and something that I think we've been thinking about a lot, Williams, who's my cameraman behind the camera there, who worked here with you guys for 10 years, who understands all this, and has really given me the understanding of what we will be experiencing, and of course what we're experiencing now. And I also wanted to point something else out. One of the things that surprised me is, as strong as the winds are that are coming through here, the electricity is still on. We've seen it pop a couple times, flicker a little bit, but so far it doesn't look like it's a big issue here at Hollywood Beach.
All right, that is good news in Broward County and Hollywood Beach. John Cadiz-Klimak, we appreciate, as always, your coverage, and please be safe. We'll talk to you again in another couple minutes.
Yeah, they're hunkering down when they feel that this is just too much for them. We know Chris Hush was in that tornado warning area. He moved, got himself out of there, and his photographer. So we will check in with him as soon as they start feeling comfortable again to bring us reports and conditions from wherever they end up being. Okay, so we are going to head over to Michael Spears. He is in Edgewater, going back to Miami-Dade County. Michael.
This is a pretty strong blast of wind right now on 29th Street in Miami. We've been moving around this area to give you an idea of the intensity of the winds and what we've seen, and you can see what the wind is doing, whipping rain across the street, and the effect it gives. Extremely powerful gusts. We do have new video to show you of flooding just a street over. We started seeing this over the last 2 hours. Water cresting the seawall here on Midtown Miami, 29th Street, and then shortly after started seeing flooding in the street. It is a remarkable difference now, between now and what we've seen over the last 2 days. Just 24 hours ago, we were reporting on the first bands of Hurricane Irma, Florida, Miami Beach, and now this. And I've lost my hat. The winds are extremely strong. We're seeing storm damage, slight in this area, worse than others. But the potential is great, as these winds are expected to pick up. Reporting in Miami, I'm Michael Spears. Back to you.
Wow. All right. So Michael Spears in Edgewater in Miami Beach. We also want to take you to this video. This is out of Sunrise. This is in Broward County, obviously, and this sunrise was included in that tornado warning that we were just talking about that is now over. But this is one of the areas that was included in it. So hopefully the video will loop. You're seeing lots of rain coming down, and exemplified by the amount of water that's coming down on the lens, which is why it's a little bit foggy. But hopefully the video will loop a little bit and you'll see that flash again, because we are seeing one of the things that we're seeing multiple times over and over again are these transformers that are blowing up. There it goes. There it goes. Yeah. So this is I-95 just south of Sunrise. Again, this is in Broward County, part of an area that was under that tornado warning that ended about 10 minutes ago.
Want to read? Okay, we're going to show you some video here from Puerto Rico, if we can. And this is essentially why. Ya se fue, dijo. There, it's gone. It's gone, she says.
Yeah.
This is exactly why the country was essentially blacked out. There were 1 million people who had no power there. And this is an example here, down power lines.
You have to make this point, too, is that Puerto Rico, one of the big talking points in the last 24 hours was that Puerto Rico was really spared the brunt of the storm, yet still we saw what we saw. But guess what? Us here in Broward County, we are also going to be spared the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
So if Puerto Rico was spared in the same way that we are, yet we're still seeing that kind of video coming out of the island of Puerto Rico, if there was ever a question, oh, we're out of the woods, everything's cool, we don't have anything to worry about, that's proof that just like them, we're going to evade the eye of the storm, avoid it. But that certainly doesn't mean that we are in any way out of the woods. And I think that's exemplified by the fact that these really strong bands are whipping up tornado warnings across Broward and Miami-Dade. We're under a tornado watch for our whole viewing area until noon. And so that was, that was some intense video. We've seen lots of transformers blow in the last 24 hours, but that was probably some of the most intense video that we have seen of the way that in terms of power-wise and the number of people that lost power, that was probably some of the most exemplified pieces of video that we've seen to show that.
And Irma left Puerto Rico a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that's some new video giving us perspective, and people here in South Florida have family members there. My grandparents were there, and we were struggling to get in touch with them, trying to find out how they were doing because they were staying put in their homes. And luckily they are doing well. They were in the northwest coast there of Puerto Rico. So yeah, we want to show you here some brand new video here. This is out of no video here. This is just some information here.
Some power outages, is that what we're talking about, Anna, correct? Okay, so the town of Davie at this point reporting around 11:45 on Saturday, so about 5 hours ago, wastewater pump station 24, which is at 4701 Southwest 62nd Avenue in Davie, lost FPL power. They are not pumping right now. So know that if this is part of what supplies you and your home or business. So it is anticipated, from what we understand, that the pump station is going to overflow because obviously the water can't get out. At some point this morning between 7 and 9, it's expected to overflow, and that could impact homes and businesses within the surrounding communities of Emerald Isles and Jasmine Lakes. Those particular developments. So this map right here gives you a better idea. If you fall within this square, a couple of square blocks in those two communities, the water in those areas may be contaminated. So know that you can't. All their crews standing by, but certainly they're not going to go out in the thick of the storm when these bands are pretty bad and try to fix anything, because that puts their lives at danger. So the biggest thing we can do is to put the warning out and know that if you live in one of those two communities that is serviced by that pump station that has not been working since 11:45 last night, so about 5 hours ago, and they're going to work to fix it as soon as they can, but it probably is going to be a while.
We have several crews in the Broward County area. We had Chris Hush, who was in Fort Lauderdale Beach, that was under a tornado warning. If I can, I want to read you something that he just wrote. He said, "I've never felt the way I did about 30 minutes ago. I was scared. Simply put, we have moved to a safer location." So you see our crews, they're out in the elements, but as soon as they feel that they can no longer do this, they feel that they are unsafe, they're not safe there, they are being asked and encouraged to move, and that's exactly what he did. So he moved to a better area, and as soon as they're ready to report for us, they will. But I'm so glad that he was able to get out of there, because he was scared, and he is from Chicago, and I worked with him in Orlando, and he says, we've been through tropical storms, but we've never been through a hurricane. He hasn't. He says, we're used to winds in Chicago, but nothing like he experienced here.
Yeah, and I'm just really glad that these reporters that have come here from other NBC affiliates to help us out, we're so appreciative of what they've done, but very happy and proud to say that they are also making sure that they are taken care of.
And that is actually Chris Hush's camera just to the right of us here. And they are under shelter there, under a roof, and you can see it, what they're experiencing there. He says he got chills when he was in his first location because of what they were experiencing. Yeah,
well, you know what, the intensity, it changes pretty quickly from relative calm to relatively chaotic in terms of the wind. So There it is. We pulled up that picture full for you so you can get a better idea. He's obviously under, I'm not exactly sure what business he is in. He is still in Fort Lauderdale. They were just right along A1A prior to moving to this location. So they moved in. It looks like they've got cement pillars on either side, so they're going to stay put, but they're going to keep those live pictures up and rolling for us so we can get a better idea of what is happening there. So we've done a lot of talk about power and the potential for power outages, and obviously we are seeing that pretty widespread. Very likely going to get worse. But right now we have Melissa Adon in Hollywood. I don't know if we can pop her up here, but Melissa, we've been talking with you over the course of the last hour or so in a pretty dicey situation for a family there because there was a power line that actually fell into their
pool,
into their swimming pool,
and there are more families
in the backyard. And Melissa, one of the good things that we were talking about with this is that the guy that lives there, the owner of the home, is an electrician. So hopefully he'll have a better idea. Melissa.
Good morning, guys. We are actually in Hollywood where there's a family that called our station because of a concern of a power line that's downed in their pool. We are in Hollywood along 66 and Johnson Street. The family very concerned calling us. Let's go check it out here. We are with the homeowner, Fernando, who's showing us inside his property that he's walking us through what we're seeing. And so, Fernando, if you...
I'm an electrician. I'm a certified electrician for the state of Florida, but I'm specialized on the elevator department. I know I got a lot of knowledge regarding electricity and how it works, but if you see all the way on top, the cables from the transformer, they snap from the trees and they went inside the pool, but they're still hot. Hot means that they got power because the fuse behind the trees, they never blew up. So now the pool right now is hot, like I said. And if you see over here, you start smoking on that box is red on fire.
Right, we can smell the smoke.
That wiring is going to go back into the house. Inside the house, we had smoke coming through the panel. So our concern is that we don't get into a fire while we're all into the property.
Definitely. There's a huge smell of a lot of smoke right now. We can see that there, that the smoke is coming out and the fire is starting. What happened when you called 911?
911, when we called them, we got the fire department came here. They said that they don't have the right equipment to go by the disconnect and turn it off. So we don't have power inside the house. But they said that they were going to call the FPNL so they can come to turn the power off. And what happened, that was like 10 minutes. They said they'll take them 10 minutes. It's been 3 hours, and we're still waiting. We don't know what to do.
And what are you afraid of, Fernando?
That the house catch on fire. And we have an older person. We got a 92-year-old person inside the room. We don't know, what to do. They told us to go and sit in the cars, turn the cars on, but that's dangerous too. You could get killed inside the car.
Sure, and at this point, the conditions are just getting worse, especially out here in Hollywood. So right now we're going to, for safety reasons, also step away from this because it is just smoking a lot. We smell it.
You can't spray water because an electrical fire, you can spray water. You need to spray an ABC fire extinguisher, so we'll stop it. But if you got power, you're going to keep cooking. See, look at that. It started already. That's what we're afraid of it. And we got gas lines into the house, so the whole house can blow up.
All right. Well, we're so sorry, Fernando. We're hopefully that officials are watching can help you out in this situation here in this house, again, along 66 and Johnson Street in Hollywood. For now, we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Melissa, thank you. And that was our question as we were pushing forward, just speaking from a very uneducated in terms of an electrical point of view, whether or not those power lines were active and live. And he's an electrician. And so basically you've got all that power backing up into his fuse box, and he's got smoke coming from his fuse box.
And they're there. An elderly person is there living in the home. But he seems like he's an intelligent man, and they're doing everything they can within their power to take precautions.
Right. Well, it's difficult when you run into situations like that because we knew that we were going to be dealing with widespread power outages, but it's hard to predict pretty catastrophic things. I hate to use that word, but that's exactly what this situation applies to, at least for this particular family, with a power line directly in their pool with a fuse box that hasn't blown. If the fuse box blew, it would be easier, because then that electricity wouldn't be backing up into the house towards the fuse box. But it didn't. It's still alive. And so obviously he knows what he's talking about, and hopefully help is on the way, because they have called FPL to let them know what's going on, because they have gas lines going into the house too.
That's right.
All right, so let's get you over to meteorologist Ryan Phillips. Ryan, what are we talking about?
Well, just a ton of rain, guys, moving through Broward County right now, and we just want to keep checking in with you periodically to let you know what's going on outside. I'll tell you, many of you, my home included, if you took the hurricane warning seriously and you shuttered up, you don't really have the means to see what's going on outside, because you open your curtain or you lift your blinds and you've got panels, so you can hear there's something going on outside, but you can't see it. I want to try to illustrate that for you best we can. Bring the live sweep through here. First alert Doppler 6000, the most powerful radar in South Florida, picking up on some of these heavier cells. Coral Springs continuing up to Parkland, Margate and Sunrise, back to Plantation, Pompano Beach. Now, I'll remind you, there are no active warnings right now for tornadoes. You know, we've been on guard for that. The tornado watch is in effect, but the tornado, no warnings in effect. But boy, Pompano Beach to Deerfield Beach, the heavy rains continue, and the driving wind as well. And guess what? We've got more activity just offshore. I just want to show you this is not giving up. And so this is where, and this is how, you start to quickly and swiftly tally locally heavy downpours when you just keep a train track running of rain right off the Atlantic waters and stretching from the southeast to the northwest across northern Broward County. Also, I'll point as my reference is 595 and north. A little bit of thunder and lightning for those of you with impact glass and trying to look outside and you're seeing those flashes. Don't assume that all of those flashes you're seeing are related to power problems. We certainly have had lightning so far on this Sunday morning, and we're likely to see some more. Back into Broward County again, just to kind of give you the lay of the land with the Sawgrass Expressway, Flamingo, the Turnpike, and moving off to the East 95, US 1 on out to A1A. And we continue to see, again, the moderate to heavy rains. And this is all one continuous batch, but some of the heavier rains are still 1 right now, 447 for Lauderdale by the Sea, and 448 for Fort Lauderdale. So again, this activity just continues to sweep in, again, with gusty winds. And so let's pull out just a little bit. Again, rumbles of thunder, flashes of lightning there, and then across Miami-Dade County. And even though the returns here aren't as heavy, you're still seeing a decent rain sliding in across Miami-Dade County. All right, let's get back live out in the field to Julia Bagg. Julia, I think you're down in Florida City.
Hi there, Ryan. You know, just what you're talking about, of course, we're seeing here winds certainly kicking up a whole heck of a lot in Florida City. We just had a blackout, and then it came back on. We're grateful for that, but we know why that's happening. The wind just whipping. Whoa. If we could look at that stop sign as it's just kind of spinning around, I could see that, the one across the street, and also in other places as well. So let's look up, though, at that palm tree. These two palm trees, man, we're watching for these to possibly go down, because things are just getting very severe. This is the fiercest winds we've seen so far, at least this morning. And listening to that howling coming through, we've been watching branches all along this US 1 here coming down. Lots of debris all around. No major damage that we've seen so far to buildings. We're being very careful right now to be under the overhang of a building. We're on a side of it that's on the west side, so the wind not hitting us directly here, just to give us a little bit more protection, because things are getting so severe. I do want to let you know, I spoke to a man who's taking shelter right here, sleeping. I said, listen, this is not a safe place to be. He told me he doesn't want to go. He didn't want to go to a shelter. He said, I did let first responders know that he's here just in case of anything. Other than that, we haven't seen anyone out on the street, and we're grateful for that. Again, yes, we are here to bring you the story, but we want you to stay safe inside, and we are doing this as safely as possible. what the story has been for us, while you saw some sideways rain when we were talking to you earlier, now it's just the wind. And of course, with at least 10 tornado warnings overnight, most of that, though, to the north of us, we are very mindful that anything can happen at any moment. And when our phones go off with those buzzings, we're very, very careful and very attentive to this. But boy, guys, we've just seen a lot of power going out. We're thankful. I mean, right before I started talking to you, Ryan, the power came back on here. But when we spoke with Eric and Shelley earlier, we were further south along US 1, kind of at that last stop before you hit the overseas highway. It blacked out all of there. There are also street lights that are out. Let me check on this one. I think it was still on. It is. That's good news. But again, thankfully, people are not out on the road, so you don't have to worry too much about that. But wow, let me just pause so you can listen to this for a moment. Also, a short while ago, we saw Florida City Police on patrol in a Humvee, so a military vehicle that they're using to be on patrol. Wow, listen to that. We're being very careful to watch for projectiles. We've seen a lot of things unsecured, everything from garbage cans to just big rocks, anything that could go flying. That's something that, of course, when it gets so dark, that it's hard to show you what else is going on here. Now, Eric and Shelley, I'm going to send it back to you.
Julia, I'm here actually, and boy, that's exactly what I would expect to find down there in Florida City. Great reporting. Glad you're getting safe. Here we go. This is I-95 and Atlantic, and boy, just the sheets of rain. And I had told Eric and Shelley, we had talked about using the rain as kind of a trace of what the wind is doing, and boy, it is just blowing. You can see it in Julia's shots there in Florida City. Then we go to the opposite end of the viewing area and go to northern Broward County, and we're just rumbling out there. Here's some live pictures coming out of Fort Lauderdale, and just sheets of rain. I mean, these are tropical rains. Look at these palm fronds getting pushed around. We've got wind gusts coming in 40, 50 miles per hour, up to 60, and this will be the story now. Obviously, we can see that this is illuminated, so we know that the power's still on. You can still see some signs of power there off in the distance, but these are some strong winds. One thing to think about in Julia's live shot, if you mentally can go back and think about this, those trees, a large, dense, thick canopy of trees just swaying around. There's a lot of energy in the atmosphere, and of course we've got these tropical rains. Back to First Alert Doppler briefly. And back down to Homestead in Florida City. Again, this activity, and it's not going to get better for Julia right now across southern Miami-Dade County and Homestead, Florida City, and then moving on up. I mean, we've got this pretty steady band of moderate rain and, of course, a lot of wind. Again, the wind's stronger across southern Miami-Dade than what we're seeing up the road into Broward County. And it's all tied in, again, to Hurricane Irma getting a little bit closer. Wow, how about this? I mean, these rains keep coming. Again, another batch. This one's a little bit further off to the south, so this will press in towards Hollywood Beach, Dania Beach, and points north and give us another good dose out on Fort Lauderdale Beach, specifically Harbor Beach, and on up through Fort Lauderdale Beach, and then extending into downtown Fort Lauderdale, so we do have more coming.
Flood warning.
Flood warning where? Let's see, we are
4:45 p.m. today.
Okay, so this is pretty widespread. Thank you, Angie. Flood warning for urban areas and small streams, and this is all encompassing. Hang with me for a minute, because this includes almost all of South Florida, beyond just the immediate southeast coast. Collier County flood warning, mainland Monroe County flood warning, Miami-Dade, Broward, Henry. This is until 4:40. So this is for 12 hours. I guess we're waiting for that to populate, right, Angie? Yeah. So this goes into effect. The bottom line here is that we're monitoring trends. There we go. Boy, that's a much better illustration. Again, this is a flood warning, and this is due in part to the estimate that in some locations we've had already 6 to 8 inches of rain falling, and we're expecting more that could drive totals between 10 and 15 inches. I do think some of the heavier rains will be on the Florida West Coast. Remember, the National Weather Service here in Miami is responsible for counties that extend off to our west. So it's an all-encompassing flood warning until 4:45. Thank you, Angie. That will take over, and it's just a sign that now when we get additional rainfall, again, those problem areas that we all know about will be much more likely to flood with all the intense rains coming in. So 12 hours now that we'll have our flood warning. That'll take us until 4:45 p.m. But keep in mind, we still stand with a tornado threat, and that will take us up until at least the noon hour. Guys, I need to get off the air so we can get ready for the 5 o'clock advisory. I'm going to send it back over to you.
All right, Ryan, thank you. Just creeping up on the top of the 5 o'clock hour, as Ryan mentioned, and that's when that next advisory to come out, and that's the big one. That's the one that gives us much more detail.
Yeah.
That intermediate advisory that we just got when Shelley and I first came on the air 3 hours ago at 2 o'clock. That was the intermediate advisory. We get limited information, but this next one that we're waiting for to come down any minute, that's when we're going to get a much more detailed account of what's to come next.
We're going to head over to Laura Rodriguez, who is live in Coconut Grove right now. In Coconut Grove, some parts there experiencing some power loss. What are you seeing out there, Laura?
Well, I'm in the area of Cocoa Walk right here in this section that I'm at. It appears, I don't think the power's out though, because I can see right there by the Sonesta Hotel the lights are on. These businesses, I think, just turned off their lights. But something I did notice while we were driving, a shutter panel flew off, or it fell down, and I'm hearing noises right now from this sign, the end school zone sign. There's a bolt. So we should probably move away from this. I feel like it's probably going to fly away. I also want to walk down this way. Incredible to see Cocoa Walk like this. Essentially a Saturday night into Sunday. Very busy just down that street. There are plenty of bars and very active nightlife around here. Bear with me for a second while we cross over, and I do want to show you. I didn't see flooding by Dinner Key Marina, but I do see some flooding right here on this street. This is a really close to Main Highway, right in front of Cocoa Walk, and a transformer just blew out over to Robert, to your left. I just saw the flash, that green flash, but stepping in here, so here you go. It is a little bit flooded here. Interestingly enough, by the water, closer to the water, it was not flooded. Not sure if this area is a little bit flood prone, but you can see there's kind of patches of water around here. Again, just right in front of Cocoa Walk. I'm standing right now. More of a wind event though in Coconut Grove, other than this section here on Grand Ave is actually where we're standing. That is flooded. But that's the very latest from here. I'm happy to take any questions. Just had to move away from that sign. I think it's going to blow away any minute, really.
Yeah, all right, Laura, just very quickly here, the big discussion at this point is those bands, and when we're seeing the intensity roll in and 15 to 20 minutes later you're seeing much less of intensity. So we were talking with a couple of other reporters that are not very far from where you are in Miami-Dade, and they're experiencing exactly what you have. It seems like you're definitely in a little bit of a soft spot right now in terms of rain and wind.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, wind, though, I think has been pretty steady from my last live shot. It's more the rain isn't coming down that hard. Well, of course, as I'm saying, the rain isn't coming down that hard.
It starts,
just poured
right?
for a second there, and it stopped again. Yeah, but you see now it stopped again. So it's been on and off again, on again. But I haven't really felt a torrential downpour. I mean, my hat is still pretty dry. So we're doing okay out here.
Happy to hear it, Laura. We're going to check in with you a little bit later.
All right, want to scroll through some still pictures, some snapshots, and these are from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Obviously pulled off onto the streets because of some heavy winds. That's what you're looking at there with those sheriff vehicles pulled off to the side of the road. You're looking at palm trees sort of pushed over a little bit because of those high winds that, again, they're certainly not sustained, but they are coming and going and pretty gusty.
And this is why the Broward County officials, they decided to put a curfew in place, because they said, we're not going to be able to help you out if you get stuck in an emergency when those wind speeds get up to a certain amount, and they have made the decision. So this is not a surprise. We knew that this was going to happen, which is why they told everybody, do not be out on these streets after 4 o'clock, and that is until further notice, because we just don't know if we're going to be able to get to you.
Right, and it was hard for us to relay that message, because we certainly did not want to put a threatening tone to it, right? Not saying, well, if you don't get out of here, no one's going to come and help you. Well, no one is going to be there, because the safety of them getting to you, that is the biggest concern. So they certainly didn't want to put a threat out to anybody and say that anybody's being punished because of it, but there has been plenty of warning for folks to make sure that they are off the streets. And in fact, there were multiple curfews that we announced early, towards the late morning, early afternoon yesterday. We started to get a lot of press conferences from the city of Miami and Miami Beach and from Broward County announcing that those curfews were going to be in place. And in fact, some of them still are in place until 7 o'clock this morning.
So we are standing by for that 5 o'clock advisory to come out any moment. We have John Morales, who's here. We have Ryan Phillips, and we have Angie Lastman. Every time somebody comes out of the Weather Center, I think of, no, we're good. Okay.
Somebody comes walking towards us and we think
immediately think it's the advisory,
go, right? Yeah.
Right.
All right.
But I just want to remind you, September 10th, peak hurricane season. It's what it's considered.
Yeah.
So hurricane season runs from June to November. We're in the thick of it right now.
Boy, did we ever fall. Right in. When you look at the graph of hurricanes commonly happening, we are sitting right within this 8-day window of when they're the highest intensity and the highest probability of getting a storm like this actually follows.
I feel like they're about to come out any minute.
So yeah, usually with these advisories, especially with these big advisories that come out at 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock, they usually come out sometimes up to 10 minutes earlier than the top of the hour. So certainly that's what we're waiting on right now.
John, are you heading about to... You ready for us now?
All right, so let's get you over to Chief Meteorologist John Morales with more on that. Hi, John.
Yeah, so we're awaiting the 5 a.m. advisory, but I want to do some analysis here of what's going on. Folks, this is not a good situation. And if you're listening to us or still watching in the Florida Keys, you need to hunker down because the worst is yet to come, and we've got an intensifying hurricane. Sadly, this hurricane's central pressure is dropping quickly. The pressure has dropped since I went to take my nap and came back so I left about 3.5 hours ago and came back, and the pressure has dropped 6 millibars since I left. When you look at this image, and now I'm utilizing the Key West National Weather Service radar, look at the so Ryan, can you slide this up just a little bit so we can get it closer to the center of the screen? I want to show folks how this eye is behaving, over the last 3 hours. This is a 3-hour loop. Watch the last hour, especially of the loop. You're going to notice that the eye is shrinking in size. This eye is becoming a smaller eye. Winds are spinning around faster and faster closer to the center. So while the winds are 130 miles per hour as of the 2 a.m. advisory, at the 5 a.m. advisory, they could be stronger. And by the time this makes landfall around 7 o'clock or so, it could be even stronger. Now, I'm not necessarily calling for a Cat 5 hurricane here. I think at this point, whether it's a Cat 5 or a strong Cat 4 is really a moot point. But what I'm trying to tell you is that this is just an absolute beast of a hurricane, which unfortunately, in its crossing of the Florida Straits from the Cuban coast heading towards the lower Florida Keys, is rapidly intensifying. And this area here, this eye wall, is just the worst part of this hurricane. The one that has those winds sustained above, I'm going to say above 130 miles an hour, because I'm considering this hurricane as one that will be stronger than currently being advised upon on the bulletins from the National Hurricane Center, and the gusts therefore will reach 150 to 160 miles an hour. And here's the other bad part as we analyze the Key West National Weather Service radar. It really looks like this is going to go right into the middle portion of the Florida Keys. There's a couple of wobbles here, slightly hurricane. So for example, had it crossed here over the Dry Tortugas, yes, it would have been really bad for Key West, for Boca Chica, for the lowest portion of the lower Florida Keys. But now that it's headed towards kind of the middle portion of the low Keys, then everybody gets it. Everybody gets the worst, fiercest part of this hurricane. So some recommendations for you down in the lower Keys. Again, the worst is yet to come. You need to move to an interior room away from windows, wherever you're sheltered in place. Keep your footwear on. In case you need to flee, you know, this situation is going to be very volatile. There's going to be a lot of debris around. Keep your footwear on. Gather blankets, gather pillows, take a mattress if you need to wherever you're sheltering in place. If you have a bicycle helmet, put that on because these are the type of winds that you see in those, you know, infamous tornadoes from Oklahoma. I mean, you know, where everything is flying and homes are being flattened by the wind. Again, you needed to have left, but if you're still there, you're still there, you need to hunker down. Again, in the next 2 hours. In the next 2 hours, this eye wall is going to approach you. Okay, the 5 a.m. advisory is in, and for now, the winds stay at 130 miles per hour, but the pressure is down to 928 millibars. Movement northwest 8 miles per hour, and at 24.1 and 81.5 degrees west, it is a hurricane that's getting closer and closer to the Florida Keys to make landfall in the next 2 or 3 hours in that area. We're expecting that as it continues to move towards the northwest, obviously we are now really within just a couple of hours of landfall. So in relation to our viewing area, which is Broward, Miami-Dade, and the Florida Keys, showing you a cone of concern is not all too relevant at this moment, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, and I think we can switch to that, yes, on Max 2, and there it is, National Hurricane Center with the hurricane heading right, it looks like just to the east. If you drew a center line here, looks like it would be just to the east of Key West, so that, I repeat, the entire lower Florida Keys below the 7 Mile Bridge will get the eye wall of this hurricane and the worst part of it. I do expect, even though this says 130 miles per hour, there is a chance that between here and here, this hurricane will ramp up, get to 135 sustain, who knows, maybe 140 sustain. If it ramps down again by the time it gets over here, that's possible too. But just looking at short-term trends, this hurricane definitely looks like it's intensifying with a diminishing diameter of the eye wall, of the eye's diameter rather, and then the eye wall looking so strong on the radar. So beyond the lower Florida Keys, this track is really bad in terms of surge for all these regions. It keeps the hurricane just offshore and very close to the coast. So we've got water piling up into the Marco Island area, into Everglades City, into Naples, into Port Charlotte, beyond that Sarasota, and then eventually, look at this, really bad track in relation to Tampa. Just making landfall in that metro area, but just offshore and piling up all the water on its counterclockwise circulation as it heads towards the north. So for the rest of Florida, beyond our viewing area, it's going to be as bad or worse than what I'm forecasting for the lower Florida Keys right now. It's just a very difficult situation, a dangerous situation. And again, in the Keys, hunker down. This is going to be one of the worst hurricanes ever seen in the Florida Keys.
Hunker down.
All right, John Morales, thank you. 2 minutes past the top of the hour right now. We will be back with our team of meteorologists momentarily with more information on that 5 a.m. advisory. Also be talking with the National Weather Service live in a couple of minutes. But right now, we want to get you out to Melissa Adan, who is in Pembroke Pines, a tree down there. And Melissa, this is one of the many places where we're seeing the exact same situation following through.
Hey, sorry. So trying to get into place here because obviously it's so dark. We just saw what we think transformers go out here in Pembroke Pines, so we were trying to get to that area. So I'm walking along 600 South Palm Avenue, and then this is the tree that's blocking the area. So you can take a look here. Give me a second. I'm going to flip over this camera, figure this out right now. Thank you, everybody, for staying with me. Okay. So this is a tree. So Pembroke Pines Police tweeted it out. It's about an 8 to 10 foot tree, rather large. These are the trees that you see on the median. And, you know, this is exactly why they said this is blocking the road, and this is why Broward County has issued a curfew, because they don't want you to all of a sudden be driving and encounter debris like this. This is why they've issued it. So wow, take a look here at how this tree was totally uprooted from the median and then it fell here along 600 South Avenue in Pembroke Pines. So this is blocking both of the southbound lanes right now. So if you're in this area, you can't travel south and there's barely any other way to go around, because if you do try to go around, there's a canal. So obviously that's not a safe option. This is so again, has issued that curfew. This is why it's in place. Pembroke Pines police officers urging you all to listen to that advice. Eric?
Melissa, Don, thank you for that report in Pembroke Pines. And again, as soon as our crews start feeling that they're not safe where they are moving. So safety, of course, is a priority, but we certainly appreciate your perspective, giving us a preview of the conditions there across the board. And that was in Pembroke Pines.
Yeah, and the same goes, our crews, the same goes for, we showed you some pictures of ESO, some vehicles pulled over to the side. They're doing the exact same thing. When things get bad, they're pulling over, making sure that they potentially could be sitting there for an hour or 2 hours until the weather permits them to get out of there and begin patrolling the streets again in a safe way. They're going to stay exactly where they are, which is what everybody should be doing. Hopefully everybody watching this is in a safe place, but if you're not, you definitely need to figure out where you're going to go if things do ramp up, which they are expected to in the next few hours.
But we're staying with you here, whether you're listening to us on the radio, watching us on the NBC6 News and Weather app, or if you still have your power and you're watching us on TV, we certainly appreciate you. We're with you here. So want to head over to North Miami. That is where Christian Casares is, giving us a preview of what is happening there. Christian? We can hear him. We can hear him. I think they're trying to get up.
Almost there. Yeah, we know that he is alive in North Miami, pretty close to the border of Broward County. And again, this is the area where not long ago that tornado warning was issued. It ended within 15 minutes, which is a good thing, but we are expecting that to happen again. So as we wait for Christian to continue to prepare, we just reiterate what John Morales was just talking about. The key focus right now is the Florida Keys, and more specifically, he was talking about, we see the eye, which is about 25 miles wide, right?
Yeah.
But then there's something called the wall, which surrounds the eye, and that's where you're getting some of the strongest winds. And unfortunately, that wall that surrounds the eye of this storm is what's going to be bearing down in about 2 hours on Key West. But Key West is certainly not the only location that's going to take that, because if you have that whole string of islands very close, Marathon and all the way up to Key Largo.
Going right through the middle portion there of the Keys, hitting everybody in that Key West area, Monroe County. All right, we think we have Christian Casares. Christian, if you can hear us, we hope that we are able to hear you as well. There we go.
I can hear you guys. Good morning. I can tell you that the conditions here are just awful. I got to tell you, this is the conditions that we're facing here right now. Basically, the wind is the biggest problem that we're seeing. We're here along Biscayne Boulevard along Northeast 108, and I can tell you the wind is basically the biggest factor at this moment. As you can see with the trees here going back and forth, there's gusts here that are coming along just every now and then in just intense force, making things just very, very, very dangerous, and that is basically reflecting on the roads. I can tell you that we've seen branches and trees and trash and just overall debris on the roads, making this a very dangerous situation for drivers. And I say drivers because we've been out here for at least 20-30 minutes, and I can tell you that we've seen at least 5 cars pass by. So we definitely know that there are folks at this time driving with these very dangerous conditions. I can also tell you that there's police officers in the neighborhood, just keeping an eye out for folks who are out in the neighborhood, and just also keeping an eye out for any dangerous situations in this area. Now, the other factor that I can tell you is the rain. Right now, it seems to have stopped a bit. It's more like a light rain, kind of like a drizzle in a way. This is becoming a very big problem, especially about an hour ago, where for folks closer to the bay, those neighborhoods, I can tell you that they were experiencing a little bit of a flooding situation, some accumulation of water there. We saw a couple of neighborhoods that we just had to pull back at a certain point. They had a few officers in that area basically telling us to just stay away, just, be safe. They have had reports of some down power lines So it's a good reminder that if you do see any type of standing water, any type of accumulation, to just stay away from that, because you never know what is being in contact with that body of water. But overall, I can tell you in this area, the neighborhoods, all of the businesses are all closed. It looks like everyone has basically been hearing authorities to take every type of step necessary to protect their establishments. Like you can see here, the gas station, each of the pumps all covered up in plastic. The convenience store over here all boarded up, the windows and the doors. And just basically the key word here is just patience. That's all we can do really at this time, to just let the system do its course. Guys, back to you.
All right, Christian, live for us in North Miami. We want to take you back very quickly here to Broward County and show you some video. This is out of Miramar for you this morning.
Yeah, Miramar, right next to the NBC6 studios, where you can see trees down. Oh, I recognize that because I think I drove through that, and that was yesterday. Only a few palm fronds were on the ground.
How good at you driving through that obstacle course?
That was before the curfew, right? Okay, so there it is. This is our drive-in to the NBC6 studios here in Miramar, where the windy conditions have brought down palm fronds, which is probably a similar sight in many people's neighborhoods. At 5:09 in the morning.
Yeah, and those
just a few hours ago.
And those palms down, mind you, obviously they're pretty strong.
Yeah,
so you know that's why palm trees grow in South Florida, right? Because they can withstand some wind. But that is certainly exemplifying the strength of the wind, not just here, but also a little while ago we were in Coconut Grove, where these huge mahogany trees, and it's still yet to be determined.
Snapped.
These huge trees literally snapped in half. And so Ari Odzer, our reporter, was there, and he said basically what he thought was that it was absolutely impossible that those trees were snapped by the wind, because the wind just wasn't strong enough to bring a tree that big.
Yeah.
No, well, not that it brought the tree down, but it literally snapped it in half, and then it fell over.
He said there was something here, something happened here. Some of it, nothing confirmed at this point, but this was not just wind and rain.
Right, but that was also one of those areas where we were coming in and out of tornado warnings for the last 24 hours. So again, we're probably days away from that, because you know the National Weather Service would have to come in and make confirmation that the damage did look like a tornado. And again, that is not the case. That is not confirmed. But again, Ari Odzer said he drives by that every day when he was dropping his kid off at school. And these huge, massive, beautiful trees, that it was literally split in half. So I mean, whether it was a tornado or a lightning strike or whatever, we'll hopefully know more.
10 tornado warnings we've seen since last night. John Morales says, in my 26 years here, I've never seen that. 10 tornado warnings, and why it's so crucial here in those inland areas that we're talking about here in Miramar. We had a lot of viewers who were asking us, I have a place in Miami Beach, 26th floor, I could stay, or should I go to Weston, or should I go to Pembroke Pines? You know, even Pembroke Pines, these areas, these inland areas are seeing these tornado warnings that are popping up. Plantation, we had Fort Lauderdale area, we had Pompano Beach, those areas also seeing those tornado warnings. Right now, we still are under a tornado watch. That was extended until noon.
For our entire viewing area. So if you're watching us on TV right now, you're included in that. If you're watching us on mobile someplace else, then obviously you're not. But you know, that 5 a.m. advisory that Ryan and John Morales were just talking about, the key focus there is the Florida Keys, because you know, if you've ever been to Key West or Marathon or any of that, obviously you look at a map, we're not dealing. There's no elevation there. There's no landmass. There's nowhere for any of that. The storm surge is going to come up, but there's just nowhere for that storm surge to then come up and go to the other side or empty, or once the storm surge comes in, it's there.
Potentially 5 to 10 feet.
And potential 5 to 10 feet. And you also have to think, we talked a lot, your average one story is 7 to 9 feet. So when you have a storm surge, I mean, it tells 10 feet, it tells the story. You know, where we could potentially be at. But again, we're about an hour and a half away from that eye wall that I mentioned, where we're seeing the strongest circulation, those strongest storms, the eye wall right on the on the cusp of the actual eye of the hurricane. That's where the strongest winds are, and those winds are going to hit Key West and then those chain of islands right in the middle of the Keys, including Marathon.
Key West bracing for impact here around 7 to 8 o'clock hour. That is when it's going to get rough out there. And we don't have a lot of video that we're showing you out of Key West because we don't have reporters there. Our crews have all gotten out of there. Yesterday, the day before, you had even the inmates who were taken out, the first responders, everyone out of the Key West, Monroe County area. But we do have some pictures, some footage here. We do have video. This is just some here that we got.